Nobody has asked me about this, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it anyway, which is the reason why I'm in Mexico. I never really intended to be on TikTok talking about living in Mexico. I intended more to just talk about stories from my life, meaning experiences. I don't have to make anything up about my life. It's been crazy enough. So, anyway, I thought this was a good opportunity to kind of incorporate what I've been talking about lately and some stories. The short answer, I will just get that out of the way for people who don't particularly enjoy hearing stories and might be curious, is because I was staying with my sister and brother in law in Honolulu, Hawaii, when shit really started to hit the fan politically in the United States. My brother in law is a green card holder in the United States and was born and raised in Sonora, Mexico, but had lived in the United States for like, I don't know, 25, 30 years, something like that. Not breaking any laws, just being a normal person, a normal dad, completely and utterly devoted to my sister. He's the best straight man I've ever met, maybe the best man I've ever met. So I sometimes have a problem with men. Anyway, he is phenomenal and I love him and I'm grateful that he's in my life and in my sister's life, but she would be utterly lost without him. She is completely dependent on him for everything. They are the best of friends and I would say that he's the same for her. They need each other. Of the two people in my life that I've ever met, they need each other the most. And I'm glad that they have each other. And if they ever lost each other, particularly for the insane clown posse who's in the White House currently, it would be horrific. It would be especially horrific because it's such a heinous situation that's going on in the United States with deportations and the fascism and the white nationalist ideology. I've never really identified with the United States, and that's why I, at the very first opportunity, left and hope to never return, honestly, to live, maybe to visit because I have friends and family there still. It's a country that was, spawned from slavery and genocide, and we pretend like it wasn't, and it's the greatest place ever. And a lot of those policies are still in place, and new policies are made to support old policies that oppress people. I've never really identified as being from the US other than being from the US, if that makes any sense. I was also raised very politically neutral as a Jehovah's Witness, as I've mentioned in a previous post. I won't go too much into that, but that kind of added to my attitude towards the country. Sure, we've been told and taught that there are freedoms there that don't exist other places, but that's also a lie. There are other countries that have similar freedoms, and there are other countries that have much better human rights. So it's it's a messed up place. And the only reason why people are drawn to it is the love of money. Love of money, I think, is perfectly fine, but when you put it above human lives, that's where we have a problem. Again, it's not the resources, it's how you use and abuse the resources. This is my new motto in life, I found. Anyway, I was staying with my brother in law and my sister in my travels in Honolulu when shit started to hit the fan. And instead of a situation happening that was completely out of their control, they decided to pull the trigger and move back to Mexico. They met when we lived here in Sonora when I was 14 and 15. My older sister is 2 years minus 2 days older than me, so she was very young when she got married, but it has been a very successful relationship, the only one that I've known of. So I'm very close to them. I love them very much. They're really the only family that I count on. My mother has passed away. I have no relationship with my father. I have no relationship with my younger sister, who has a different father. They're who I have, and my children. My children were from my marriage. I was married for 17 years to a man who is half Native American, half African American. His mother was born on the only reservation in the United States that straddles the US and Mexico, which grants her the possibility of getting Mexican citizenship, which grants, because of lineage, my children's ability to get Mexican citizenship. And it's kind of funny because growing up in the US, being a brown person, my son in particular was always asked if he was Mexican. And Mexican is a nationality, it's not a race. A lot of people are confused by that in the United States that don't have a lot of understanding about the world, which is a lot of people there. Uh, but it's funny being in Mexico now and everybody here thinking that he's also Mexican because we're in Mexico, so it makes much more sense and he's brown. But he only knows like maybe 5 words of Spanish. So it's really funny when we go places, they automatically talk to him and he's like, and I'm like, no, 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 no. You got to talk to me. I know a little bit more Spanish than he does, and I'm actively learning, whereas he's not. That's a whole issue that I have, but it's his life. It's kind of a tie to Mexico. It's a tie having lived here before. And then there's also a tie with my mother. Mexico was always a part of my upbringing because she was born and raised in San Diego, California. She passed away in 2020. She always felt an affinity with Mexico because they were constantly going there when she was growing up in the 50s and 60s. She knew a lot of Spanish as a young age. She became an interpreter for a parole board at a prison in Arizona when we lived in Mexico. She was crossing the border every day to work. She assimilated to the culture when we lived there. My sister became a Spanish teacher. She's fluent. I have a nephew that's half Mexican. So I have always felt a tie to Mexico, even though I am not Mexican myself. In fact, my ancestry DNA came back as completely Northern European. So I like to kid and say that I am the whitest person you'll ever meet, which of course is not true, but I mean, I have to make fun of myself in some way. What I lack in my genes, I made up for in my offspring. Anyway, that's the bulk of the reason why I'm here. I am actually here on a tourist visa and do not plan to stay in Mexico long term. That could change, but I will leave after 6 months and follow the rules of the country because I do very much respect Mexico. I always have. I'm doing my best to learn Spanish. It's very hard in my 49-year-old brain, even with my basis of Spanish back when I was a teenager. So that is the reason why I am here. It's a safety issue for my brother-in-law. It's a safety issue for my sister because of my brother-in-law. It's a safety issue because of my son. He's not safe in the United States as a brown person. My daughter is not safe in the United States as a brown person. I still very much worry about her and a lot of my friends and family that I have back in the US. But I never intended to live in Puerto Escondido. My son felt called to Oaxaca and we landed here, and I ended up meeting somebody within the first 2 weeks and decided to work with them and go on this very healing, intensive journey to work on myself. It's an absolute amazing gift and opportunity. That's why we're still here. And I am investing in the house that I'm renting as much as I can, as much that makes sense. I'm investing in my process here, and I'm investing in the community as much as I can and as much as will be accepted. We'll see what happens in the future. In the meantime, I'm going to learn as much as I can and enjoy myself.